Hey, what's up, folks? I got a message from someone who subscribed to the videos, and I thought instead of just responding to this one individual, that I might as well make a video response and put it up on the channel, because other folks might have similar questions, and it might just benefit them too. This person basically is in a situation where T is not, doesn't look like is in the immediate future, and this person noticed that it took a really long time for me to get started on T from when I started identifying as trans and wanting to transition to actually starting the process, which is true. And this person wanted to know whether this was a choice for me, not a choice, and how I maintained my mental well-being in that process, in terms of waiting and having patience with it. I actually did a similar video once talking about this on the Men's Room F2M collab channel that I'm a part of. So if folks want to check that channel out and also see the responses that other trans guys had to this, but to get to the point of it, yes, it took me a while to get started in the process, and I both had some choice in the matter and also did not. I made a choice to not start T, but it had a lot to do with my legal standing. And when I first came out, I was an international college student, so I very much relied on my student visa and every requirement that comes with it in order to stay in the States, to stay in school and all of that. Not knowing anything about how transition might affect my legal status, I didn't want to jeopardize anything for myself. I was really afraid that transitioning and starting to present as male would put me in a place where a student visa might be taken away from me, because the student visa very clearly indicates my birth name and a female gender and all these things. So I didn't want to be put in a position where people would say that I was a fraud, or find some reason to take the visa away, basically. I also didn't start on T because I really wanted to have an opportunity to talk things over more with my family, specifically my mother and my sister, to get them to understand this a little bit more. Obviously, they're never going to understand it to the extent that a trans person does, because they're not trans, so I don't have that expectation. But just to be able to have the conversation enough to make me feel content that me starting a transition isn't going to be a complete shock to them, and not going to shake our relationship to the utmost core. So I didn't want to transition before going back home. Being on a student visa, I was required to go back home for 2 years after graduation, which I did. And so didn't transition before that, and also couldn't transition while I was there. I didn't know of any therapists around, or folks who prescribed T, or anybody within the medical field that knew anything about trans people. And I was completely unaware of whether or not there were risks associated with searching these things out, so I just didn't bother, to be honest. I didn't do much searching. I wouldn't even know where to start. I hadn't been in Cyprus for 7 years, and the last time I was in Cyprus, I was 18 years old. So it very much felt like a foreign country to me. I didn't know how to maneuver it, how to maneuver the system there. So I chose not to deal with it and focused instead on getting back to the States. Once I did, again, I took my sweet time with it. The fact of the matter is, if anybody wanted to make trouble for me, they could. And I'm still kind of nervous about that risk, but I came to the point where I couldn't wait anymore. I had waited at that point at least 7 years, to start transitioning, and I couldn't see when things would get easier or less risky or anything like that. So I just needed to get it done. So waited a while. In terms of how I maintained my mental health and sanity and all of that through those 7 years, I have to be honest, I wasn't always very successful. There were definitely times where I felt really isolated and vulnerable, and made some really risky choices. But my mental health was not at its utmost throughout those 7 years. What did help me when I was well were the friends around me. I trusted my friends. I had a very solid network of people that I cared about, who cared about me, and they have been and always will be my saving grace through difficult times. Even today, as I'm making this, I have to say, like, a phone call today from a very, very dear friend really saved me today. I was feeling really down in dumps, really self-loathing today, and getting that phone call made a huge difference for me. So my friends have always been my everything through this process. I was lucky when I was coming out that trans guys started coming out of the woodworks around me, and we built a network and supported each other through that process, and that was good. It wasn't a huge network, it wasn't a huge number of people, but it was enough to get us through, and that was yet another miracle. Now I find myself in a situation where I don't find myself near trans guys on any semblance of a regular basis. There's one person that I call my friend who identifies as trans, and a couple of students and former students who I wish I saw regularly or had a closer tie to that are trans and transitioning and all of that. But don't have much of a network here. The online community is really the community that I rely on to just connect with other trans guys. Creating these videos for my YouTube channel or for the Men's Room F2M collab channel just helps me talk through stuff and process things, and has been really, really good and just cathartic to do. So for folks who are finding themselves in similar situation to the person who messaged me, I guess my sole advice is to do that, is to reach out where you can, find out where there are folks around you, whether that's online or offline, and get to that, because really there are going to be those days where you're going to feel like there is no way out, and no solution in sight, even though there might be, and obviously there was for me. I did manage to start transitioning at one point, and have been on T for 5 months now. I will say this on the upside about patience and taking a long time with the process. If your journey is meant to take a while, and you don't see that being any shorter anytime soon, make the most of it. I had the fortune of doing transformation in the midst of those 7 years, and in a very real way, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on every tiny little detail of my life that I possibly could. Obviously, not everything made it onto the show, but I got a chance to talk those things out, and really felt solid with my identity, and gave me this space within that felt very much mine, and I owned my being. I don't know how to really put that into words. I think other folks who might experience the same things or have before might be able to explain it better. But when it came to identity development around any area, whether it was my trans identity or my queer identity, my male of color identity, like all of these things, it gave me a lot more intentionality in their development. So use the time in ways that maybe if you started transitioning tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to use the time. Figure out, what does it mean to you to be a man? What kind of man do you want to be? And build the things around you that you need in order to maintain that. I hope this was helpful. I hope this answered the person's questions, as well as some other questions that other people might have. If not, feel free to comment and ask further, or video response, and we'll just go back and forth and stuff. So, hope folks are doing well, and thanks for watching.